Hey math students, welcome back. Today we are going to learn how to convert standard form to factored form. If you recall from your notes, standard form looks like y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, and factored form looks like y equals x minus root 1 times x minus root 2. Just to recap, our roots our x value of our x-intercept. Our x-intercepts are the points where the parabola crosses the x-axis. The x-intercepts are always the x value, comma 0. So here it's negative 3, comma 0, here it's negative 2, comma 0, and the roots are just those x values. So now that we've recapped that, let's go ahead and start to copy down the steps for how to convert standard form to factored form. So, step 1, to convert your standard form to factored form, we need to find the roots. We're going to use this equation, which goes with this graph and this table. So, our roots can be found, like mentioned before, using the graph, wherever the x-intercepts are. That's exactly the same thing as the roots, except we don't write it as a point, we just write the x values. So here it's negative 3 and negative 2. Using our table, we look to see where do we see 0 in the y column. Oh look, over here, negative 3 and negative 2. So let's copy down that first step. Step 1 is determine the roots. We determine that our roots for y equals negative x squared minus 5x minus 6 is x equals negative 3 and x equals negative 2. Now that we have the roots, we can actually use them and substitute them into our general factored form. So let's copy down step 2. Step 2 is write the equation in factored form using the roots. So I write y equals x. Now, in the general form, it's minus root 1. The reason it's minus is because minus tells you to change the sign of the root. So, minus a negative gives me plus. So, minus negative 3 gives me plus 3. Same with the second root. X minus negative 2 gives me plus 2 because minus a negative changes it to positive. So here we've used our roots to write this equation, y equals negative x squared minus 5x minus 6 in factored form, but we're missing one thing. What does the standard form have that we did not write yet in our factored form? A negative. Whenever your standard form begins with a negative, your factored form must also begin with a negative. If your standard form does not begin with a negative, then you do not have to write a negative in front of your factored form. Woohoo! We just learned how to convert standard form to factored form using the roots. But how can we check to see if we got the correct factored form? We can do a check. So with the check, we have to make sure that when we multiply our factored form, we result in the original equation we started with in standard form. So at the end of our check, our negative x plus 3 times x plus 2 should result in y equals negative x squared minus 5x minus 6. So let's start our check. Whenever I see that my factored form or whatever form I have that isn't standard form begins with a negative, I like to draw a line down to remind myself, hey, I'm going to leave that negative for last. So now I can begin to multiply the binomials x plus 3 and x plus 2. So x times x is x squared. X times 2 is 2x. 3 times x is 3x. And 3 times 2 is 6. And I will not forget my negative. And now I have to combine like terms. So my like terms are 2x and 3x because they have the same variable. So x squared plus 5x plus 6. And now I can finally distribute my negative. Technically, this is a negative what in front of this expression? It's a negative 1. So now we can distribute the negative 1 to the expression in the parentheses. It's negative 1 times x squared, which gives me negative x squared. Negative 1 times 5x, which gives me minus 5x. And negative 1 times 6, which gives me negative 6. And look at that. I resulted in the original equation I started with. Before you exit out of this video, make sure to have the example equation, the roots, the factored form, and the steps in order to convert standard form to factored form. Thanks for watching, and until next time.